If you want to instantly triple your daily AI productivity, you must stop chasing perfect prompt libraries and start connecting these models directly to your personal Google Drive. In a recent analysis for Tom's Guide, AI editor Amanda Caswell demonstrated how bypassing generic prompting in favor of workspace integration fundamentally shifts how these tools perform. By exploring 7 specific integration strategies, you will learn how to unlock the hidden context in your dormant files. But how exactly does a disorganized folder of old notes outperform a masterfully engineered prompt? And what is the hidden technical bridge that makes this connection so powerful? For the past 2 years, the conversation around artificial intelligence has been dominated by a single obsession: prompt engineering. We have been told that if we could just find the magic combination of words, the perfect sequence of verbs, or the most detailed persona, the AI would suddenly deliver flawless results. I have spent countless hours testing hundreds of these prompt libraries myself, and the reality is deeply disappointing. Some of them offer minor improvements, but many of them make absolutely no difference. The truth is that prompt engineering is a band-aid for a much larger problem, which is a lack of specific context. When you ask a standard AI model to write a proposal or summarize an industry trend, you are forcing it to operate in a vacuum. It has to rely entirely on its general training data, which means it can only give you generalized average answers. But a fundamental shift occurs when you stop treating the AI as an external search engine and start treating it as an integrated operating layer. By granting the model direct access to your notes, your PDFs, your research, and your daily spreadsheets, you are no longer asking it to guess what you want. You are providing it with the exact intellectual raw material it needs to work as a highly specialized personal assistant. This shift relies heavily on the ecosystem built by Alphabet, where the integration between language models and cloud storage is becoming increasingly seamless. When an AI can actively scan your Google Workspace, it begins to understand the implicit context behind your questions. It knows who your clients are, it understands your ongoing projects, and it recognizes your personal priorities. You do not need to spend 20 minutes writing a hyper-detailed prompt explaining your business model, because that business model is already documented in the files sitting on your drive. The first practical strategy to leverage this integration is turning an entire folder of raw research into a polished, structured draft. Think about how we traditionally compile information. You might spend days gathering sources, saving articles, downloading PDFs, and taking messy notes in various Google Docs. When it comes time to write, the traditional workflow requires you to keep 10 tabs open, manually copying and pasting paragraphs into a chat window, trying not to exceed the character limit, and constantly reminding the AI of what you want it to focus on. It is a highly manual, exhausting process that ruins your creative momentum. With direct drive integration, you can completely bypass this friction. You simply point the AI toward your specific research folder and provide a direct, strategic prompt. Caswell outlines an incredibly effective prompt for this exact scenario. Use the documents in this folder to create a presentation explaining the key findings, organize it with clear headings, note where the sources disagree, and flag any claims that need additional verification. This approach works because it shifts the cognitive burden of organization from your brain to the machine. The difference in the output is immediate and dramatic. Instead of synthesizing a bland summary based on public internet data, the AI constructs a draft built entirely on the foundation of your proprietary research. More importantly, because you instructed it to note where sources disagree, the AI acts as an analytical filter. If one document in your folder claims a project budget is $50,000, and another document from a different department lists it as $65,000, the AI does not just pick one or average them out. It actively highlights that conflict, showing you exactly where your research requires further human reconciliation. This is not just about saving time, it is about improving the actual quality of your thinking. By instructing the model to flag claims that need verification, you are using the AI to stress test your own work. It acts as a digital editor, pointing out logical gaps or unsubstantiated claims in your source material before you present them to a client or a manager. You are no longer wasting your energy on the mechanical task of compiling data, which means you can focus entirely on refining the strategy and making decisions based on that data. Once you master the ability to synthesize an entire folder of research, you can apply a similar logic to one of the most tedious administrative tasks in modern professional life: comparing complex documents. Whether you are a business owner reviewing different versions of a client proposal, a freelancer checking a revised contract, or a project manager trying to spot what changed in a project scope, manual document comparison is excruciating. We have all been there, staring at two browser windows side by side, trying to spot subtle changes in wording that could have massive legal or financial implications. Standard word processor compare features do a decent job of showing you where words were deleted or added, but they are completely blind to semantic shifts. If a client rewrites a paragraph in a contract to shift liability from their team to yours, a traditional redline tool will show a sea of red text, but it will not explain what that change actually means for your business. This is where an AI connected directly to your files becomes invaluable. By pointing the model to two specific files on your drive, you can use a highly targeted prompt to cut through the noise. Caswell recommends asking the AI to compare the two documents and create a table showing every meaningful change, specifically highlighting anything that affects pricing, deadlines, responsibilities, or key decisions. What makes this technique so powerful is that the AI does not just do a literal character-by-character comparison, it performs a conceptual analysis. If the revised document changes the payment terms from net 30 to net 60, the AI will pull that out and place it in a clean, structured table. If a critical deliverable has been quietly rescheduled, or if a clause has been added that increases your team's responsibilities, the AI flags it instantly. A task that normally takes 30 minutes of intense, error-prone concentration is completed with high accuracy in a matter of seconds. It fundamentally changes your relationship with your business documents, turning you from a proofreader into an informed decision-maker. But the value of this integration extends far beyond current projects. One of the greatest challenges of the modern digital workspace is the sheer volume of information we produce and immediately forget. Most of us have hundreds, if not thousands, of documents sitting in our cloud storage that we rarely, if ever, open again. We have meeting notes from a year ago, brainstorming sessions from past quarters, and project plans for ideas that were temporarily shelved. This is a massive repository of personal and professional knowledge, but because it is unorganized, it is essentially useless. If you've made it this far, you're my kind of viewer, so like the video and subscribe to the channel and stick with me. This is what I call the digital graveyard. We do not look at these files because the friction of finding them is too high. Traditional keyword search tools are incredibly limited. If you cannot remember the exact file name or the specific phrase you used inside a document, your chances of finding it are slim. This is where you can leverage semantic search by asking the AI to interrogate years of your personal notes. Instead of digging through nested folders yourself, you can use prompts to query your historical data. For example, you can ask the model to look through your meeting notes from the past 6 months and identify which projects have been mentioned most frequently. Or, even more practically, you can ask it to identify what specific action items you committed to that do not appear to be finished. Why does this work so much better than a standard search? It works because the AI understands the meaning behind your queries, not just the letters. If you ask about projects you committed to, the AI does not just search for the word commit. It understands the semantic structure of a commitment. It looks for phrases like, "I will take care of that," or "I'll have this ready by Tuesday," or "put me down for that task." It compiles these instances across dozens of different files, cross-references them, and presents you with an actionable list of your own historical commitments. It allows you to instantly recover lost information and keep yourself accountable, transforming your disorganized cloud storage into a functional external brain. This semantic understanding becomes even more powerful when you apply it to dense, external documents that you are forced to process daily. Think about the sheer volume of PDFs we are expected to read. Quarterly financial reports, school handbooks, software manuals, or industry white papers. These documents are often incredibly long, written in dense bureaucratic jargon, and formatted in a way that makes quick scanning almost impossible. The typical reaction to this information overload is to either ignore the document entirely or read a generic summary. But a generic summary is rarely useful because it does not know what you specifically care about. A school handbook might contain 50 pages of policies, but if you are a parent, you might only care about the specific rules regarding medical absences and grading policies. By pointing the AI to a specific PDF on your drive, you can instruct it to extract highly practical, customized intelligence. You can ask it to summarize the document, list every concrete action item, note important deadlines, and explain anything you should pay particular attention to based on your specific role. This approach completely changes how we consume long-form information. Instead of wasting hours wading through corporate fluff or legal boilerplate, you get a direct, customized brief. The AI acts as a highly efficient filter, extracting the precise data points you need to do your job or manage your life. It translates passive information into active, structured tasks, ensuring that you never miss a critical deadline or a subtle policy change hidden on page 87 of a user manual. And this is where I think the conversation needs to move beyond simply connecting files to a chatbot and then figuring out the perfect prompt for every individual task. Once your sources contain the context, the next question is why you should still have to manually engineer a new workflow every time you want to turn that context into something useful. That is precisely the problem Narratora, a generative content automation platform, is designed around. Instead of beginning with a blank chat window and repeatedly explaining what you want the AI to do, Narratora begins with your source material and moves through a predefined content workflow toward a professional output. Its smart source detection helps identify the type of material you provide and recommend workflows that fit that source, reducing the dependence on complicated prompting. So imagine that the dense source in front of you is a 200-page report. Instead of manually prompting your way through summary after summary, that source can be transformed into an executive brief. The same underlying material could be turned into a professional report or presentation outline when those formats better match what you actually need. The important shift is that the source remains the foundation of the workflow, rather than asking the AI to invent context around a generic instruction. That is the larger idea behind source-driven generative content automation. Source, intelligence, workflow, professional output. You still need human judgment, and critical information should still be verified. Source grounding does not magically eliminate the possibility of AI errors, but it changes the starting point. Instead of spending your time trying to describe all the context through increasingly elaborate prompts, you give the system the actual material and choose what you want that material to become. But what happens when you ask an AI to find connections between documents that seem completely unrelated? This is one of the most fascinating capabilities of a context-integrated AI, and it represents a massive leap forward in how we approach creative and analytical work. In our daily lives, we tend to keep different types of information completely separate. We have one document for customer feedback, another for a team brainstorming session, a third for weekly meeting notes, and a fourth for a structured project plan. Because these files are siloed, our brains struggle to connect the dots between them. We might miss the fact that a recurring customer complaint mentioned in a feedback log is directly related to a technical limitation discussed in a meeting note 3 months ago, which was also the subject of a loose idea jotted down during a late-night brainstorming session. When you give the AI access to these disparate files and ask it to look for patterns, you are essentially outsourcing the process of lateral thinking. You can upload a folder containing customer feedback, meeting minutes, and project plans, and ask the model to identify recurring issues, overlooked ideas, or themes that were not obvious when reading each document individually. The results of this kind of analysis can be incredibly eye-opening. The AI might spot that a specific competitor is mentioned across multiple casual conversation transcripts, or that your team consistently encounters the same bottleneck in every project plan you write, even if no one has explicitly named it as a systemic issue. It finds the invisible threads that run through your work history, presenting you with high-level insights that would otherwise require weeks of manual tracking and data mapping. It turns your scattered daily outputs into a cohesive, evolving knowledge base. This ability to synthesize and connect old information leads directly to another highly practical workflow, bringing old work back to life. We are constantly told that we need to be content creators, whether we are writing LinkedIn posts to build our professional network, drafting newsletters for our clients, or writing internal updates for our company. The constant demand for fresh content is exhausting, and it often leads to creative burnout. But the reality is that you do not need to start from scratch every time you write. Your Google Drive is likely full of highly valuable intellectual property that you have already created, but because it is in the wrong format, it is sitting there gathering digital dust. A webinar you hosted 6 months ago, a presentation you delivered to a small team, or an internal report you compiled for your manager are all rich sources of ideas. By using AI as a translation layer, you can easily repurpose this existing content into entirely new formats. A raw webinar transcript can be instantly transformed into a series of structured blog posts. A detailed presentation deck can be rewritten as an engaging email newsletter. An old annual report can be broken down into a multi-part social media campaign, and simple meeting notes can be converted into an external checklist for your clients. And this is another place where moving from prompting to workflows becomes important. The valuable asset is not the prompt, it is the source. With Narratora, that same principle can be applied through multi-source ingestion and predefined professional outputs. A 90-minute interview can become a YouTube script. A research report can become a newsletter. Meeting material can be transformed into meeting minutes and an action plan. One body of source material can therefore support multiple professional outputs without forcing you to rebuild the context from scratch for every new format. This is a massive unlock for productivity. Instead of staring at a blank page, trying to summon inspiration, you are building on a foundation of work you have already completed. You have already done the hard part, the thinking, the researching, the structuring. The AI is simply handling the mechanical task of converting that thinking into a different format, matching the specific constraints of whatever medium you choose. It allows you to maximize the return on your intellectual labor, ensuring that a great idea is shared across multiple channels rather than being locked away in a single, forgotten file. This process of content creation becomes infinitely more effective when the AI actually sounds like you. This brings us to the final and perhaps most underrated benefit of workspace integration: teaching the AI your personal writing style. If you have ever tried to use a standard AI model to draft an email or a post, you know how incredibly frustrating it can be. If you ask it to write an update, it often outputs a highly dramatic, overly formal message filled with corporate cliches and exclamation points. If you tell it to sound casual, it swings too far in the other direction, sounding unnatural and forced. Most people try to fix this by adding descriptive adjectives to their prompts, asking the AI to sound professional yet approachable, or confident yet humble. But these words are highly subjective, and the AI's interpretation of them rarely matches your actual voice. The only way to get an AI to write like you is to show it, not tell it. Instead of using abstract adjectives, you must provide the model with concrete examples of your previous work. Caswell outlines an exceptionally clean prompt for this workflow. Upload 3 emails you have actually written and ask the AI to use them as examples of your writing style to draft a new email, matching your specific tone and sentence length without copying any of the wording directly. When you feed the AI your actual writing, it performs a stylistic analysis. It looks at your typical sentence length, your vocabulary preferences, how often you use passive versus active voice, and how you structure your transitions. It reverse engineers your unique writing style. This approach is incredibly helpful for drafting difficult or high-anxiety correspondence. We all have emails we dread writing, asking a boss for a raise, addressing a frustrating issue with a neighbor, requesting a refund from a difficult company, or trying to clearly articulate complex medical symptoms to a doctor. These tasks are mentally exhausting because we worry about how we will be perceived. By using the AI as an emotional buffer, You can input the raw, unfiltered facts of what you want to say, point it to your style examples, and let it draft a polished, clear message that sounds genuinely like you. It eliminates the friction of drafting, allowing you to edit and send the message without the associated stress. But as we talk about the immense power of connecting our personal and professional files to these models, we must address the massive question that most people quietly ignore. What about security and data privacy? This is the hidden risk that prevents many professionals from fully embracing these workflows, and it is a completely valid concern. If you are uploading proprietary business plans, sensitive client contracts, or deeply personal notes to an AI, you need to know exactly where that data is going and who has access to it. The reality of AI data privacy is highly dependent on how you access the technology. If you are using free, consumer-facing chat interfaces and copy-pasting your documents directly into the window, you are likely consenting to have your data used to train future public models. For businesses, this is an absolute compliance nightmare. It is how proprietary code, trade secrets, and confidential client information end up being leaked into the public domain. However, when you use dedicated workspace integrations, such as Gemini within Google Workspace or enterprise-grade APIs, the data governance rules are fundamentally different. Under these enterprise agreements, Alphabet and other major providers explicitly state that your data remains private to your domain. Your files, your prompts, and your generated outputs are not used to train the underlying public models, and they are not accessible to anyone outside your organization. But you cannot simply assume you are protected. You must be incredibly vigilant about the tools you choose to connect to your drive. There is an explosion of third-party browser extensions and casual productivity apps that promise to organize your files using AI. Many of these tools require you to grant them full read and write access to your entire Google Drive. Before you click Accept, you must verify their security credentials. Do they have SOC 2 Type 2 certification? What are their data retention policies? Do they sell anonymized data to third parties? If a tool cannot provide clear enterprise-grade answers to these questions, you should never grant it access to your files. The true value of your Google Drive is not just that it stores your files, it is that it stores your history. Many of the documents sitting in our cloud storage were written long before modern AI tools even existed. They represent years of our lives, our businesses, our thoughts, and our decisions. When you begin to explore these pre-AI documents with modern tools, it is an incredibly eye-opening experience. You quickly realize that you do not need to spend your time looking for the perfect magical prompt. The most powerful prompt is already written. It is the cumulative context of your own work history, and I think that is the larger transition happening in AI right now. We are moving from a world where people are expected to become better prompt engineers toward one where the source material itself becomes the foundation of the system. Sometimes that means connecting an AI directly to a workspace so it can understand years of accumulated context. Other times it means taking a specific report, transcript, interview, document, or collection of sources and putting it through a purpose-built workflow that transforms that material into the professional output you actually need. That second approach is exactly why Narratora was built, a generative content automation platform. The idea is simple. Turn your sources into finished content. Instead of making complicated prompting the center of the creative process, make your source material the center, then use the appropriate workflow to transform it. One source, multiple professional outputs, no complicated prompting. Ultimately, the smartest way to leverage your data isn't to ask the machine to invent something new, but to task it with synthesizing the wisdom you have already accumulated. As you refine your approach, remember that the most secure and effective AI systems are the ones where you maintain absolute control over the boundaries of your digital workspace. Protecting your intellectual property while unlocking its potential is the definitive challenge of this new era. Treat your archive with the same caution you would a physical vault, and you will find that your past work becomes the most valuable asset you own. And if you want to see what a source-first content workflow looks like in practice, turn your sources into finished content at narratora.com. Thanks for watching. Like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want more of these, and I'll see you next time.